I never believed in ghosts. Until that night, it knocked on my door. I'd always been a logical person who tried to understand everything with reason. Our small town was so quiet that any strange thing was immediately noticed. Maybe that's why, the first time I saw him, something felt different. He was simply standing across the street, staring straight at me, completely still, without moving or blinking even once. At first, I ignored it, thinking he was just some new person in town. But when he started appearing at the exact same spot every single day, the unease began to grow. One day, I asked the tea seller who that man was. He looked at me strangely and said clearly that no one was standing there. I turned around. He had vanished. That evening, when I returned home, he was standing right in front of my house. This time, I gathered the courage to go near him. But as soon as he raised his head, I felt a chill deep inside. His eyes were empty. It had felt like he was reading every part of me. I couldn't speak a word. Without saying anything, he melted into the darkness. That night, when I looked out the window, he was there again, standing perfectly still, as if waiting for me. I told myself it was just my imagination. But around 2 a.m., in the dead silence, a soft knocking on the door woke me up. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was so faint that if I hadn't been awake, I probably wouldn't have heard it. Scared, I walked to the door. The moment I got close, the knocking stopped. Mustering courage, I asked, "Who is it?" After a few seconds, a whisper came. "It's me." The voice sounded human, but there was something unnatural about it, as if it was both very close and very far away at the same time. I got frightened and didn't open the door. But after that night, everything changed. Now he no longer just stood outside. Every night around 2:15, he would come, scratching at the door, standing by the window, watching me. Many times it felt like something was circling the entire house, but whenever I stepped out, there was no one there. One night, I decided I would catch him. I turned off all the lights and hid behind the curtains. Exactly at 2:15, he appeared again. This time, his face was clearly visible, pale, unnatural, and that smile. It was the most terrifying thing of all. He slowly came toward the door, but didn't even touch it. Yet the door started shaking on its own. Panicking, I grabbed the handle. It felt like some invisible force was trying to force it open. A few seconds later, everything went silent. When I opened the door, there was no one outside, but in the dirt, the footprints were exactly like mine. The next day, I went to the library and checked the old records. What I found shook me to the core. Many years ago, a man had lived in this very house. He used to say that someone was stalking him. The same knocking, the same time, the same fear. People thought he had gone mad. One night, he was found dead inside the house with no visible injuries. But on his face was that same strange smile. The most horrifying part, his name was exactly the same as mine. I was still thinking about all this when I returned home and felt someone's presence inside. The house was dark, but I could see him clearly. The man who had been watching me for days was now standing inside my house. This time, his face was perfectly visible, and it was my own face. I stood frozen. He slowly walked toward me and said, "Now it's your turn." I tried to step back, but my legs wouldn't move, as if they were rooted to the spot. The moment he touched me, everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was standing across the king at my own house. Inside, I could see myself, trembling with fear. That's when I understood. I had now become the thing that had been watching me all along. Now, every night, I stand at that same spot at the same time, watching myself, wanting to warn myself, but the only word that escapes my mouth is, "It's me." After that night, my life began to change slowly, but the fear didn't come suddenly. It crept in like something crawling through the darkness, getting closer and closer until it was standing right in front of you. I tried hard to convince myself that it was all in my head, but every night at 2:15, the same voice, the same presence, the same cold feeling. It all started feeling more real than any illusion. I tried changing my routine, sleeping early, keeping the windows closed, double-checking the door lock, but nothing worked. In fact, it felt like the thing understood my fear and was moving its steps accordingly. One night, I mustered the courage to set up a small camera near the door so I could see what was really happening outside. I spent the whole day anxious. When night came, I lay on the bed, but sleep was impossible. Exactly at 2:15, the same sound came. Knock, knock, knock. This time I didn't get up. I just held my breath and listened. A few seconds later, the scratching sound started as if someone was slowly dragging their nails across the wood. I didn't have the courage to open the door. As soon as morning came, I checked the camera recording, and what I saw pulled the ground from under my feet. The video clearly showed the door, but there was no one outside. Yet the door was shaking slightly, as if someone was touching it from the other side. And the most terrifying thing, a voice was clearly audible in the recording. "It's me." But the voice wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from inside, my house. After that day, I became afraid of staying alone. I called a friend over and told him everything. He laughed at first, but seeing my condition, he agreed to stay the night. We both waited together. The moment the clock showed 2:15, the same knocking echoed on the door. This time, my friend also froze. We looked at each other. Now it wasn't just my imagination. He slowly walked to the door and asked, "Who is it?" There was silence for a few seconds. Then the same whisper, "It's me." But this time the voice sounded slightly different, as if two voices were speaking together. My friend got scared and stepped back. We didn't open the door. The next morning, he left without saying much and never came back to my house. He just said, "This is not right." After that, he stopped picking up my calls. Now I was completely alone. And the thing was coming even closer. It started feeling like it wasn't just outside anymore. It was inside the house too. Many times I felt like someone was standing right behind me. But when I turned around, there was no one. One night, I got up to drink water. The moment I switched on the kitchen light, I saw it. It was standing in the corner of the room, completely still. I couldn't even scream. A few seconds later, the light switched off by itself, and when it came back on, it was gone. That moment, I realized this was not a human, and it wasn't going anywhere. It was here, with me. After the third day, the fear had settled deep inside me. It was no longer something coming from outside. It had become a presence that stayed with me all the time. Wherever I went, it felt like something was walking with me. My mind kept saying it was just fear, but my body refused to believe it. I reduced going out, closed my shop, and locked myself in my room. But the strange thing was, the more I tried to shut myself in, the closer it felt. 2:15 was no longer just a time. It had become an appointment, a moment I could not escape. That night, I felt something different. Even before the knocking started, I knew it had already arrived. Not outside the door this time, but inside the house. The air suddenly turned cold, as if all the warmth had been sucked out of the room. I slowly raised my head, and for the first time, curiosity overpowered the fear. "What are you?" I whispered. There was silence for a few seconds. Then from behind me came the same voice. "You." My body froze. I slowly turned around, and it was standing right there. This time it was clearer than ever. Its face, its eyes, its smile, everything. And yet something was wrong with it. It looked incomplete, like a copy of someone else. I kept staring, and suddenly I felt something strange. Every movement it made was exactly like mine. When I breathed, it breathed. When I tilted my head slightly, it did the same. It wasn't looking at me. It was mirroring me. My heart started pounding. I suddenly raised my hand. It raised its hand too. I took a step back. It took one too. But the difference was, it was not in front of me. It was behind me. And then, without any warning, it suddenly vanished. I panicked and ran out of the room, but the whole house was silent. I checked everywhere. No one was there. But the moment I returned to my room and looked in the mirror, the ground slipped from under my feet. I was not alone in the mirror. Behind me, it was standing there. I turned around. Nothing. I looked back in the mirror. It was still there. And this time, it wasn't smiling. It was staring at me, as if waiting. I stepped back in terror. But in the mirror, it was moving forward. Slowly. One step, then another. I wanted to scream, but my voice got stuck in my throat. And then, it pushed its hand out from inside the mirror. Yes, from inside the mirror. As if the glass was not a wall, but a door, its fingers reached my shoulder, and the moment it touched me, a jolt ran through my mind. Suddenly, memories started coming back. Things I had never remembered before. I was seeing myself, but differently. I was the same man who had lived in this house years ago. I was the one who said someone was watching him. I was the one who feared the knocking on the door, and I was the one who had died that night. My breath started to choke. "No, this can't be true," I muttered. But the memories were becoming clearer. I could see it. That same night, that same time, that same fear, and the same thing that was now standing in front of me. And then I understood. It wasn't someone else. It was me. Or perhaps a part of me. The part that had died that night and had now returned. I collapsed on the floor, clutching my head. Everything was spinning. And then, suddenly, everything became quiet. I slowly raised my head and looked in the mirror. Now it showed only me, alone, as if nothing had happened. But deep inside, I knew this was not the end. It had only just begun. Now everything started making sense. But knowing the truth was even more terrifying than running from it. After that night, I had changed. I was no longer running. I was waiting for 2:15, because now I knew why it came, and for whom. I spent the whole day sitting in the house, doing nothing, just thinking. If it is me, then who is the real me? And if I am still alive, Then what is it? As the night approached, a strange kind of peace started mixing with the fear inside me, as if some unfinished work was about to be completed. The moment the clock showed 2:14, I chose to stand right in front of the door. This time, I wasn't going to run. 2:15. And at that exact moment, without any sound, I felt its presence on the other side of the door. This time it didn't knock. It just stood there. I stood there too. A few seconds that felt like hours passed. Then I myself opened the door. Outside was darkness. But it was right there, standing directly in front of me. And this time, there was no smile on its face. It was just looking at me, deeply, as if making a decision. I said softly, "What do you want?" It remained silent for a few seconds. Then it said the same thing. "Space." My heart forgot to beat. "Whose space?" I asked. It took one step forward, and now we were so close that I could feel its breath. It whispered slowly, "Yours." In that moment, everything became clear. This wasn't a ghost. It wasn't a stranger. It was me, but the me who had died that night. And now, it had come back to take its place. I wanted to step back, but my feet wouldn't move. It felt like I had already lost. It slowly raised its hand, and this time I didn't stop it. Something inside me was saying, "This is how it has to be." The moment its hand touched my chest, a sharp cold spread through my entire body. Darkness began to cover my eyes, and the last thing I heard was its voice. "Now you will stand outside." When I opened my eyes, I was standing across the street. The same spot, the same street light, the same cold wind. My house was in front of me, and the lights were on inside. Near the window, I saw myself. But it wasn't me anymore. It was him, now living in my place. He was moving around the house comfortably, as if nothing had happened, as if he had always been there. And I was now outside. I wanted to scream, wanted to run inside, but my feet wouldn't move from that spot. It was as if I was bound to it. I tried to speak, but the only word that came out of my mouth was, "It's me." At that moment, I realized this cycle never ends. Every time one me stays inside, and one me stands outside, and every night at 2:15, the one outside tries to come in. A few days later, I started watching the me inside the window with fear. He would pull the curtain aside and look at me, exactly the way I used to look at him earlier. The same fear was in his eyes, the same questions that once belonged to me. And I had now become the thing I used to fear. Now I stand there every night at the same time, at the same place, not to knock on anyone's door, but to wait for that moment when the me inside opens the door and I can take my place again.